Million conjugations. Yeah. It's awesome. It's like crazy. We got to do that, like for everything.
Good evening. Thank you very much for coming this evening. This has been a lot of work to make it happen. We've been able to get a lot of these beautiful panelists here, and we just want to apologize that we didn't have everything ready to go for live streaming tonight, but we are recording this event for anybody else that may have been sharing that link. You'll be able to get that later. So I'm Milton Davis, and I'm the office manager with the Nez Perce Wallowa Homeland, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit that is intertribal. We are not the Nez Perce tribe, as some people might think with our name. We want to kind of clear that up for folks. We work with all of the three main tribes to bring their Wallowa Band descendants back to the homeland. That's the connection that we're trying to foster the most with Wallowa County, and especially with the work that we do here. We really appreciate that you guys have come out tonight, and we'd like to, I'd like to introduce you to Shannon McNerney. She's right here. She's going to be our moderator, sorry. And I'm going to turn this on over to her. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks,
Mel.
I'm going to try to, you all can hear me okay? I'm known for my quiet, dulcet tones. So I'm Shannon McNerney. For those of you that don't know me, I'm actually the executive director of Fishtrap, which is the space that you're in right now. I am not here under that capacity tonight, though. Actually, I'm here as a Wallowa County resident and as somebody who's very interested in this topic and who likes to have conversations. So one of the things we're going to do tonight is talk about how words, something Rich and I have spent our long time talking about, is words have power and they have meaning. And that's not shockingly limited to the English language and Shakespeare. So how those words have meaning and their spiritual resonance and how language comes to being is part of what we're going to talk about tonight with the language of the Nez Perce and Umatilla and Cayuse folks, Walla Walla. We're going to talk about how can we as people in Walla Walla, where are we? Wallowa County, talk to folks and welcome Indigenous people into our individual society. How can we make sure we're reaching out to them? But most importantly, what I want that happen tonight is have you listen to stories from the folks here on this panel, because they're the experts. So we're going to have two different kinds of phases of this conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the language revitalization and education work that's happening throughout the area. And then we're also going to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what do you do when you're like me and you make mistakes and you have foibles. So I'm going to start out with a personal story. Rich, you're a character, so hang tight. If I say this wrong, let me know. So as some of you know me in this capacity. I've been here actually as of yesterday, 9 years. When I first got here, I came from Willamette Valley, and a lot of the intercultural work I had done there had largely been with Hispanic community. Lots of work with the Hispanic community, but not anything at all with Indigenous folks. When I first came here, Rich had been, I think, not executive director for almost 5 years at that point. Rich had done a lot of work with Fishtrap, reaching out intentionally to Nez Perce folks. When I got here, that work had pretty much stopped. And it didn't stop because anybody didn't care. What we realized is it stopped because we didn't know what we were doing. And when I got here, I was terrified. I was so scared I was going to say the wrong thing, or make a mistake, or insult somebody, or make a misstep that I didn't do anything. I said nothing. And I think it was Summer Fishtrap 2017. We had a number of, combination of scholarship, fellowship, and an Indigenous faculty member who one night grabbed me and said, "Why don't you come and sit and have dinner with us?" And I sat down and had dinner with them, and these three lovely women, we know well in the community now, Ruby Hanson-Murray and Deborah Erling and C. Marie Furman, sat me down and said, "Do better." And as I think JC would say, I got roasted in the best possible way. They sat me down and said, "Here's what's happening. You're not doing anything is not helping, it's making it worse." So what they encouraged me that night was to ask questions and to take risks and make mistakes. Rich did the same thing. And with that, over the years, we've now worked intentionally to make sure that those conversations are still happening. Boy, do I still make mistakes. but I'm not afraid of making mistakes out of love. So that's something I hope if you can walk away with a little bit tonight. Think about it. If you're not reaching out to folks and welcoming them to hear, is it out of fear? And maybe we can help you out with that a little bit tonight. How does that sound? Okay. So what's going to happen tonight is we're going to have a conversation with these three people who are experts. They're going to do most of the talking. Yay. So I want you to feel like you're curled up on the carpet listening to a really great conversation. We're going to have some questions and talk about these issues and let them talk. If you have questions, I want you to wait till the end. And we're going to talk for probably about 45 minutes to an hour. Think something up, write it down. I'm going to say this now. I'm going to say it again at the end. Some of you know me. I'm going to be serious about this. A question starts with who, what, why, where, when, and how. If you have a fabulous anecdote or something wonderful you want to share with people, or a compliment because JC has the best shoes on the stage tonight, that's great. Save that when we're done, and you can feel free to do that in the dining room afterwards. But I think we all know we've been in panel discussions where somebody gets up and talks like I am right now. You're like, would you get on with it? So please think about a question with one of those things, and I tonight will stop you if you don't. So that's the plan, but do feel free to ask questions. We're going to give you lots of time for that. So shall we get started? I do want to acknowledge we had a couple of last-minute substitutions. I want to thank Melanie for stepping in for Kelly Sheehy tonight. And JC got pulled basically out of her car and put on a chair tonight. So I want to thank her. She was teaching at Crow's Shadow like 3 hours ago, and she's got to go back in the morning. So thank you for jumping in. So I'm just going to start. Could you each introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, and we'll just go from there. So,
sure. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm Jacy Sohappy. My Indian name is Tumumno Red Hummingbird. I'm a descendant of the Wallowa band, Yakima Nation. I grew up partially in Warm Springs, and I'm also a Cayuse and Walla Walla descendant. I come from the Black Eagle family, which is a direct descendant of Chief Joseph. I am the Community Engagement Director for Nez Perce Wallowa Homelands. It's one of the funnest part is to ask people to come hang out with me in Wallowa and get dirty with me, go dig in some dirt with me, go see the views with me and get to know and build a relationship with this land again. So I get to share the best parts of my grandpa and my uncle when I work over here, and then I also work at Crow's Shadow as the traditional arts manager. So then I get to pull all my artsy friends and then have class and try to keep our traditions alive that way, not with our hands and keeping our hands busy. And that's the best part of my grandma that I get to share with everybody else. And then the other parts I get to get thrown on stage up here and then share some more with you guys. So I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me again.
Oiklo Yakakil Bilbwas Inwas Walwama Kawawawi Po Shin Pisquaushuk Kamislama Zabelichen Tatu Kona Omek Laikin Pa Wali Mataspa Sohappy coordinator Katsya Ya Oiklo Panach Paik sich Kina Wataspa Liloits Inim Timina Ki Kulawit Kahene Katsya Ya. Hello, everybody. My Indian name is Yakakil Bilp. I am of the Chief Joseph band that got placed at Nispelem, Washington. I work in the Traditional Territories program. I'm the Sohappy coordinator. I work with the Chief Joseph band Nez Perce and the Palouse on the Snake River. What I said in the languages, I'm Walwama. That's the people that come from here. but I'm also part Palouse, part in our language we say Sinpisquouch, Sinpisquouchuk. They're also known as the Wenatchee. And from my mom's side, we come from Rock Creek, which we call Qamil. I was raised by my grandmother, Agnes Andrews Davis. She was our last fluent speaker in the Nez Perce Longhouse at Nispelum. She was the daughter of Willie Red Star Andrews, and he was the last recognized chief of the Chief Joseph Band. And they did away with the chieftainship when they did the Indian Reorganization Act. My grandmother, she talked of many things, of how things were back when she was little, and how, when they still did the chieftains, how they would come together, and there was no English. It was all in the language, and how her and her mom would cook and whatnot and do things for them while they met. And it's really difficult sometimes when you think about, what our people went through, getting displaced from here. It always feels good to come home, but, it's always just for a visit. And you look at this country and you can realize why our people, miss this place. Every time I come down here, I always kind of go on my own, talk in a language to the land and sing a song. It means a lot to me. Makes me think of my grandmother, and she always told me to not brag about what our people went through. They went through that war and that whole trail. There was people that died here and there. There was people that died in Oklahoma. My grandmother's grandfather is buried in Oklahoma. And so it's not something that you brag about. That's what she was getting across to me, because what they went through, it was pitiful. So I always, she always told me to do my best to live a good life, and that's what I feel I'm trying to do anyway. And what we're talking about here, our language is, it's our identity really. It's who we are. We feel that's what the Creator gave us, and that what makes us distinct from all other tribes. We have what you call sister languages. Nez Perce is what you call Sahaptian. Then you have the other languages are Sahaptin. The Ichishkin speakers are Sahaptin, and Nez Perce is like a sister language. There's many words that are really close, almost similar right on. But some words are totally different. That's why it's called a sister language. So being raised by my grandmother, when I came to be an adult, I worked in our language program. I worked with my grandmother and Frank Andrews. I worked there for 22 years, teaching language, documenting language, creating material, and listening to recordings. It's a lot of work. When people talk about work, you get tired, but when you do language, they say that your mind gets tired, and it's hard to explain, but it's true. Language, when you work with language, is something that always stays with you. That even when you go home, you're still thinking of words. So it's not, you don't ever actually leave, because it's always with you. But I just wanted to share that little bit.
Thank you.
That's, yeah.
That's Glowit. Inwanakisha, Kristen Parr, Titoka Timki, Whitney Dwash, Talwi Tontmai, Ka Nikyawi Kotni Paitza, Ka Inim Sabahita Benawat, Hiwaka, Atohon, Itko Eugene John, Ka Tiapola Shantmai, Itko John Burnside, Ka Shaushwinat Mai, Itko Kathleen Gordon, Ka Wako Laapte in Miwit, Sapalal in language department, Ka Wako archival specialist, Wash. Ka inpochts witnikt hiwaka Melissa Chapman Parr. Ka EP hiwaka pitamyalon ilp. Ka pitamyalon ilp kitni walametkin. So I know a little bit of my history of the family that goes all the way back. And so our people are from Red Hawk family, and my great-grandmother was Melissa Chapman Parr, who was, she was like one of the first queens of the Happy Canyon when it was in the early 1900s. And my family is mostly Cayuse and Walla Walla. And when my great-grandmother, she was a fluent speaker of Walla Walla, and so was my grandfather, Alfred Parr, when they were growing up. But I did not know this until after they passed away. And so I grew up just always learning, or always yearning to learn my language. Since I was displaced in the city, I only got to live on the reservations during the summer times, and it was the best times of my life. And so I've always had a connection through my heart. And I had to go a roundabout way getting to my language program by, I have a bachelor's degree in Japanese, and then I had to learn French, and I learned all these other languages, and finally was able to be in linguistics and then come home, because I've always wanted to just be permanently home. To me, home is where my reservation is, and that's the Umatilla Indian Reservation in Pendleton, Oregon, and we call that place Nihiawi. And finally, I was able to get a job as a language apprentice through a grant, and that was in 2005. So it's been 20 years since I've been working for the program, and I was under the tutelage of Eugene John and Joan Burnside and Kathleen Gordon. For 11 years, I got to be an apprentice by their sides, and these are the last people that were born as native speakers. There were the language, it was their first language, was not English. And I mean, even my teacher, Joan Burnside, she was born in a tent in the Cayuse, in the hills of Cayuse, and I think that's so neat to be able to have a connection with somebody that was born that way, and then have me, like now I'm modern, using flushing toilets and all that, and just being able to have that experience and have the language be carried from them, and then they got it from the past, and it's been, brought, and then it took me 30 years to be able to learn my language. I mean, I knew some words growing up and everything, you know the basic slang and whatnot when you're, with your friends and whatnot, but actually being a real student where I actually went through professional linguistics training and then was able to work with Noel Rood. He was one of the best linguists I ever met in my life, and him and Haruo Aoki, who was the creator of the Nez Perce dictionary, I got to work with him as well, and I really got to interview these people and ask them, real linguistic questions about how do you use the language in a scientific manner. But then the other aspect was listening and sitting with the actual elders who were speakers of the native language, and you get to spend, you cannot match that, feeling and experience with these people that, give you the gift of the language. And so it was such a special experience, to be able to carry this on and be a language warrior and to be one of the people that gets, that's my job, as a person in the tribe, to be able to fight for the language, and those are my gifts and everything that I was given. And when I was young, I'm also part Northern Cheyenne, which is interesting, but my grandmother would speak Northern Cheyenne around the table with her friends. And I remember being little and, they were really strict, children were not to be heard. They're just, go do the thing and leave us alone. We're the adults, kind of a thing, They weren't mean or anything like that, but just, and so, we were supposed to go do TV or clean or whatever, but I would always pretend I was watching TV and I'd listen to them speak, I'm like, what are they saying? Like, I have to know. And so I just always wanted to know, like, every language, and so just getting the chance, because my heart's here, it was really just a cool opportunity to finally, get this language going, and then putting my spin on things and, like, being able to, further that. So that's about where I'm at.
Well, I kind of want to go off of that, start with you, Julie, if I could, about, both talked a little bit about how you came to be exposed to the language and learn more about it, but you're both teaching, you're both reaching out and being language advocates. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that work looks like for you now and who you're working with. So what is the work that you do within to be a language advocate or to teach, and how are you helping in your work to do that language work now?
Well, I'm actually not working in a language program anymore. I work in the traditional territories program. But I'm still doing language work. I help out with some of the language program, and I went there recently, about 2 weeks ago, kind of help talk to them about the differences in because you got, in Nez Perce, you got what's called upriver and downriver dialects, and for the Chief Joseph band up there, we talk, a little bit different, and I told them it's good that because they were taking an online or Zoom class from a teacher from around the Lapway area, and I told them it's good you guys, are learning, but I hope you understand that there's a little bit of a difference, how we say things versus how they say things, and I stress to them that they're not saying things wrong, they just speak things different, and I gave them a couple examples, and then they understood, and they want me to go back, and I have to go back to help do some recordings with them, and I really miss being there because, just like I said earlier, language is always with you, and there'll be times, where you'll forget things, you'll forget how to say things, you'll forget a word, or you'll forget, some people's names, but sooner or later it'll come back, and I'm not contributing so much as I'd like to be, but I still get requests, on how to say a word or how to say a sentence or how to say names. I get requests on. Those are people from the community, from descendants from the Joseph band, and I don't know if people really realize, where we're coming to a time of, because up in Nespelem, I don't consider myself fluent. I don't think, a speaker really never says they're fluent. We have a saying that you don't really ever want to say the F word, and the F being, fluent. And it's because, as natives, you don't put yourself up. You don't say I'm this knowledgeable. There's a little bit of respect that because we feel that we're all equal. So I feel I have a little bit of knowledge. I share what I can, I just think we're coming to that time where we have very few speakers. There's just maybe a handful of us up there at Nespelem that, because anybody can get up, say a little greeting and how are you, but to actually converse in the language is different. And there's probably maybe, I don't know, less than 10 of us up there that can actually converse somewhat, and I can't really stress enough how I feel the Joseph Band, what we call, what we speak is Titokatimpt. My elders stressed, there's a few times where they would say Nimipu, but after a while they would say, oh, I shouldn't say that, because that word can't be broken down in Nez Perce. And, the suffix pu on the end it means people, but the Nimi it can't be broken down. So my elders would say, Titokatimpt. Titokatimpt can be translated as Titokan is really human person. The timpt part is language, people's language. So when you say Nimipu timpt, I really don't know what you're saying. They try to say it means we the people, but you say noon for we, or kia, but that's not in the Nimi. So we kind of think it's like a borrowed word, really. I mean, some people are going to get upset about me saying this, but
Is that an example of the dialect differences you were talking about a little bit, or is that, as you talk about this is Chief Joseph, the Colville, the areas, but Lapway is going to have a different interpretation of that, or is that, as I'm watching heads nodding and I want to make sure I'm following all of that. So not everyone would agree with that.
Yeah. And that's fine, but
Yeah.
but I've asked,
It's fascinating.
I've asked 2 linguists, and they can't answer it.
Well, linguist. I'm just, is there something you wanted to follow up?
Well, I just love how, you're talking about, like a true speaker will never, I know every word, that kind of thing, that kind of stuff. But don't mistake this man right here. He is so smart. Like he just knows so much history. He knows so much stuff. It's not just about the words. It's about everything that goes into it, because language is everything. Language is alive. Language is in every single thing that we do and breathe and live and practice and, everything. I mean, just like we speak English, English is every single thing we do. We talk about cooking, we talk about sleeping, we talk about everything in English, just the same in our language. And it's not just meant to be just sacred, you know what I mean? It's everything, but there's all these other sacred things in our language, right? And this man knows so much stuff. And I mean, I'm one of these people that, I've been doing this for a while, but I go to him when I need something, and I go to Thomas Gregory, and I ask Philip Kashkash, and I ask, always check your work. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are in something. I feel like you always have to get an editor. You always have to, it seems like, just to show proper Ka'anish respect on that, and the people that do the work. I feel like if, a lot of people wouldn't really make claims, claiming. And also, I mean, my favorite thing is like, we've lived our whole lives knowing English, but we all don't know the whole English dictionary. We don't know every single word in the English dictionary. We don't know every single word in Nez Perce. And it doesn't mean, just because somebody didn't say it this way doesn't mean they didn't ever say it that way, or say this word or use that word. It just means the people that got recorded at the time were the ones that were basically setting the tone for all of this. So if you didn't ask every single person that could speak, then you're only going to get a limited amount of information. And so there's all these things now that are coming out from different people, because it's really neat in a way, because they're studying, they're taking time to do some research maybe, and they're reading things, and the more that we have documented, the more that people can really understand. But then there's issues with that too, because of feelings about documentation and recording and things like that too. There's all these issues But the tempt, part of the thing, that means language. Like, just like there's actually, this is interesting because, the controversy between Nimi Pu tempt, or Titoka tempt, or now at Umatilla tribe, since about 2017, we as a group decided to name our dialect Weilet Pu tempt, okay? And so that's not really a thing. I mean, it's not really technically, it's not a language by itself, right? Because really, Cayuse, okay, so Weilet Pu, that means Cayuse people. Tempt means language. So Weilet Pu tempt would be Cayuse language. But we don't have Cayuse language anymore, technically. It's extinct now. We have been speaking a lower river dialect of Nez Perce all this time, since the 40s, like 1840s. No, 1840s even. They even were starting to use Nez Perce since the 1840s-ish. I can't say, what I mean? You can definitely correct me if you know, but since around there. And then our people have been, basically they evolved to Nez Perce, right? The lower river dialect. Well, a lot from what my experience is with my speakers, what that really means a lot is that we use the letter S like a sh instead of a s sound. So like Lapway style is like a s when they use the letter S, and our style is the sh sound. And it's been operating like that for a long time. And now there's even people nowadays still even are having some issue with that even. So there's all these new things, these new discoveries and things. So I mean, it pulls at your heartstrings. It makes you, because you're connected, and so you want to be right a lot of times. Ego is a huge language killer. Anything, you know what I'm saying? Like, ego is a huge faux pas for me. Like, I really don't really care to have that in there, because I really feel like he is so humble, you know what I mean? Like, really, humility really is the key and the answer to a lot of this stuff. And then if you can get somebody to share with you the things that their grandparents taught them, because there's a lot of stuff that isn't recorded. There's a lot of things out there that people don't know, that people are still learning.
I was curious about that. So you, just to follow up on the recording piece a little bit, the controversy that can be around that. I know there's been conversation. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted JC to chime in on that first question.
Oh, yeah,
about
sure.
what are you doing?
Talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, because we didn't finish about what we're doing to further the language.
Yeah,
and like,
sorry.
she's sort of one of my students now. I'm happy for her, but I want her to interject there too, because she's doing so much, now.
So I do work with language quite a bit more, or I want to quite a bit more with the Nez Perce Wallowa Homelands. So we do a lot of programming for different ages of kids, and we're looking to do a culture camp with a high part of that being with the Nez Perce language and getting them connected and using the land and the culture camp and getting them out of a classroom and onto the land to learn these words and to learn these connections. And I think that I do a Zoom class with Kristen every Tuesday when I can make it. And that's helping me, because it's nice, because I'm not even close to being able to speak my language. And it's so cool, because when Dewey's talking, I knew some of the things that he was saying, and sometimes before it wasn't like that. My grandma wasn't a speaker. She didn't speak any native. I know that she could understand it, but she didn't speak it. It was something about her past, that wasn't something that she was comfortable doing, sharing with us. I think that she knew, but I think there was something behind that I didn't get. And so now I feel like I'm yearning for it, because sometimes the way that we want to explain what's happening, there's not a word for that in the English language. And so sometimes when you find those words, it means so much more to you. It explains more because it's from me. It's from my people. It's a different way to explain things, and it's more personal. So I want more people to feel the way that I want to, by I want to know more. I want to know more. How can I use this? Am I spelling this correctly? Am I pronouncing this correctly? Because I want other people to learn just like me. And I'm okay being corrected, and it's okay if you're trying to use these words like katsiao, thank you. So a little bit of the things that I teach non-native kids is what my aunties taught me is cats go meow meow, and they can remember katsu yao yao. And so I remember when I was little, my auntie would always be like, cats go meow meow. And I would remember that. And that's how I remember to say stuff when I was little, and my uncle's joking around. And some of these words, I don't really necessarily remember the word because it was taught. I remember the story that I was told to teach me these words. So I feel like a little tiny dog with the big dogs right here. And I'm really excited that I get to make programming so other kids can start this journey before me. And that maybe there can be a handful more of us to be able to start understanding each other. Yeah. Maybe not conversating, we can just start by trying to understand each other. And that's not just with us standing here, it's you also. There are things, the way that we talk and the way that you talk, it's different. You could be saying the same thing and I could be saying the same thing, but it's perceived different because of the communities that we grew up in. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to ask these questions and answer these questions that other people have for me. And like I tell Kelly all the time, she's always like, okay, this might be a dumb question. I'm like, it's not though, and I'll tell you, even if it is a dumb question, I might tell you it's dumb, but I'll still answer you. And I'll still give you, the best of what I know, or this is what I know, or this is who you can go ask, or this is who I would go ask. Yeah. And these people are usually on the email chain with that. So I just want to know more of what they have to offer. And I want to be able to offer these students that are hungry for this, for them to be able to share their knowledge with me and the generations younger than us, so that this doesn't get lost somewhere.
I love this whole respect coming down as you're learning from each other, but also you can almost see the like a waterfall, right? So looking at that work, then you talk about you're working with kids and with younger folks now. How has that? I want to start with you, Kirsten, just because you've been doing this for 20 years and are still currently in the work. What have you seen? How has that changed with the younger generation? Either one of you who want to jump in, have you seen a change with the way language outreach has worked? Has technology played a part in that? How is interest within younger folks in learning these languages?
Well, it's kind of a mixture. So much youth is so apathetic about so many things these days, but Native youth, they get sparked, when you have a good mentor or you have a program. It's like really about availability too and access. Right? Because if you don't have access to things, then you don't even know it's there. And technology is our friend, in my opinion. It really has changed how we do everything, and especially since the pandemic, when we had to start Zoom things, everything Zoom, everything, online. And that was really hard for me as a teacher because I'm so used to having the physical interaction in the room right there, and so you have to figure out how do you keep these kids interested on Zoom when they can just turn their camera off or, whatever it is. Even adults do this too, you know what I mean? Just whatever, we all do it. But, it's like all these different things came to light. But when I first started, still me, I'm organic. I really, really, really still like to just show up with no paper, no pens, no products, and just my mouth and my brain and my students, and make them physically, we can do these cool things. It just depends on what the lesson is or what their ages are. Even though adults, I can do the same thing. And it's really fun just to do simple things, just to start, if they're beginners or whatever, just from that. But then also now I was just explaining, like, this isn't Nez Perce language, but technically it's still Sahaptin, but our Umatilla language dictionary that's from our tribe is online, and we have such strides in that right now, where I was just explaining we have a new button on there, and if you click on the verb, you can go down on the left and it does a conjugation of the verb, and it's like, what? Because the guy that works for us is a linguist, but he is totally a genius and he's into AI, so he programmed this AI program to like seriously plug in every form there is just by doing this formula. And it's like he came up with like millions, like not millions, but like thousands, I'm not kidding, of different forms of these verbs, right? And so now it's like on the internet, it's like there, you know, it's never was there before. And I get totally nerded out about that stuff, you know what I mean? So like everybody has access, right, to that. And so anybody can learn, any of you, anybody can just go to the dictionary now and start learning. Now we're programming it, so we're doing a project where I'm like recording the elders reading the dictionary, so they're gonna have each thing that's on that, you know, thing is gonna have an audio. So we're creating archives and we're creating, you know, things that will last forever, you know, like, and especially right now, we're with the last people that were born fluent. We're the last. There's nobody else. There's nobody else. I'm gonna totally cry, but you know, we're capturing them, you know, on the voice recording, and it's like essential, you know. And a lot of people, those people are all gone now, though. The languages are dead. The ones that, or the people said, do not record, do not do this. We have respect for that, but it's also gone.
Yeah.
So now, you know, we can't learn that. What do you think?
Any thoughts on that, on the, where things are going forward, or how changes you've seen?
Well, you know, just like anything in life, you know, everything changes, you know, and so does the language. You know, I'm in my early 50s, and I've seen, you know, change in the language. And you know, I tell people the way I heard my elders talk versus how I hear people speak now is it's different. You know, we're like I said earlier, we're losing that, and you know, it's sad, but you know, there's always change, and the technology, it really does help. You know, when you think about it, and my grandma, and she called her sister Ann George. They didn't want to be recorded. They didn't even want their picture taken. You know, and that goes back to part of a belief that, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, but, you know, they didn't want it. They didn't. Whenever people took pictures of my grandma, she was usually looking down. You know, she didn't want to be looking at the camera. You know, and of course, you know, we all respect, you know, our elders' wishes, but, you know, at the same time, you know, when you lose an elder, you lose everything. All that knowledge they had, and it's not just language, you know, it's history too, you know, because we feel that every one of our elders is important, and, you know, that's why we cherish them so much. But yeah, the technology helps. You know, there's tribes, you know, that have created apps, and, you know, they're fun and whatnot to assist with, but, you know, you got to update those QR codes every so many years, and that costs money. You know, so it's difficult in a way, but, you know, the Zoom classes helps. You know, we have a lot of recordings. You know, those old recordings help. And you know, when you listen to those, you can hear that older language. You know, and you kind of have to help your students to understand. You know, but I think, you know, going forward, you know, my elders always talked about the differences they've seen. And I always used to tell them, imagine what it'll be like 50 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's hard to think about, but it will be different, you know, whether you like it or not. It's things will continue to change.
Lesson for all of us, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, Five Crows one time came up to me and was like, you know, Kristen, that's great, you know, that you're doing the videos and everything. He's all, and you can, you know, teach the kids through the computer, but he's like, you can't teach anybody to be an Indian on the computer. He told me that one time.
JC, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned it, talking about the work you're doing with kids. Should non-Indigenous folks should we in the county be working to learn some of the language as well? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I think it is. I think if those are people that you're going to conversate with, then I'm telling you guys hello, you know?
Right.
I'm saying that in a borrowed language. So I think it's a respect thing, because I like at Mazatlan at our, he takes your order, the owner of the Mexican restaurant. And then this one time, me and my friend were sitting there during Roundup, and he takes our order, and then he's like, "Katsiao," and he walks off, and we were both like looking at each other like, did he just tell us Katsiao? And one of the grandmas, Tessie, is the one that taught him words, so then he uses that when he knows you're native. He, you know, says hi and says good afternoon or says thank you in our language, and then we get a kick out of it, and we're like, oh, you know, and then we say whatever, or we aze around, and we're like, yeah, that one guy that we all know now. So I think it's appropriate, as long as, you know, you're not doing it in a derogatory way, and it's because you want to learn. And you can ask, hey, is it okay that I say this to you? I mean, because you can only get a no back, you know, that's just like asking your mom for anything, you know?
Yeah, not everybody's the same either. Not everybody will be rude, or not everybody will be, you know, standoffish. And it doesn't automatically work like that. A lot of people are really friendly and will be happy if they know the answer. They're happy to share it, you know, most of the time. I think it's fun. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm a person that likes to learn a lot of languages, so I would be really bummed out if I like lived in Japan and I was told, nope, you can't learn Japanese, but you know, you can be here. You know, like, oh, you know, can't really get around that way, but you know, so I think it's appropriate.
Does anybody else want to just sit on the floor and let her teach us for a while? It's just like this. If you taught me languages in high school, my world would have been different. Thank you. I have so many questions I want to go with this. I want to watch the clock and make sure we have time with follow-up, but I'm going to make, this is going to be, talk about asking a dumb question and feel like, you know, to push back, but so how can we in the community here help you with this work on language preservation? So what are some like real things we can do? Are there obstacles we can help you remove, whether that's physical ones or you know, attitudes? What can we do as Wallowa County community members to help you with this work? Anyone?
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know, for maybe the past, I don't know, 5 years maybe, I would get contacted to come down here to take part in things, to give input, or just, you know, to be included. If I think it's really good to be inclusive of all three tribes. The Joseph band from Nespelem, the Cayuse from Nichiawe, and the Nez Perce from Lapwai Nez Perce Reservation. You know, there's, I don't know if many of the non-members know, but there's you know, disagreements between all of us, and it comes down to basically claiming lands, you know, and trying to feel like one should be here more than the other, but a lot of those disagreements are between the political side, our lawyers, our council. But when it comes down to us traditional people, our speakers, none of that is there. You know, we all help each other. You know, I'll go to Lapwai, help out with a funeral, go sing, or go down in Nichiawe, and I'll help and sing in line. And so I think whatever you have here, just be inclusive of the three tribes. Maybe have a language camp. I think a good place is, you know, the Tom Click's campground, and you know, just that word in itself, how my elders said it versus how I hear people say it, and you know, when I hear them say it, you know, I think back to my elders and how they said it. They pronounced it Tom Clicks. They didn't pronounce it Tam Clicks. in, you know, Tom clicks, what, when they would hear somebody say it, you know, my elders would kind of giggle and laugh, you know, and people would look at them like, you know, what's so funny, you know? But when you translate that word, it means like laying on your back. Tom clicks. And when there's a certain angle when you're in the town of Wallowa, you look at the mountain and it looks like somebody's laying back looking up. And that's what that means. It doesn't mean you laying on your back, you know. It's talking about the formation of the land. It looks like somebody's looking up. So that's just an example. One example of the pronunciation is different. Even the translation sometimes is different. But I think those kind of things, you know, we could do at a language camp if a language camp is held. And you know, one of the things that we always, when I worked at the language program, get asked is the best way to teach. What's the best way to teach language? And I used to tell people is living with a fluent speaker is the best way to learn. Because you know, when you do it in a classroom setting, you know, you can only do so much of what's called the CAN system. You know, the colors, animals, numbers. You can only do so much of wordless, and you know, you got to get beyond that and start conversing. You know, take your students outside. You know, do trips on going on hikes or fishing or digging or hunting, and I think that to me really helps to learn. And it's hard when you don't have fluent speakers. So you can what's called semi-immersion or maybe half-day immersion. You know, I used to work with my elders, and when they would come in the morning, I'd go get them coffee, and I'd ask them, what walaksalach, you know, do you want coffee? And he'd say yes or no, so I'd go get him coffee. But just between them two, they would talk in the language. You know, and I really missed that. I missed that. You know, and there was a word here and there I want to look that up, or I want to ask them about that, you know, because like I said, they talk different. Sometimes they use older words. You know, and a good example is when you ask somebody, how are you? You know, you go to Lapway, they say, mana awas. But up there, they would just say, manawa. They talk, you know, different. Like they shortened words. Or if you was outside and you came in and, you know, you ask, mana amti, you know, how is it outside? You say, some of them say, oh, it's waits he was, you know, or my elders would just say, it's waits he. You know, they shortened, you know, and, you know, so when I explain things like that, you know, and people really like, oh, okay. And I had one language teacher from Lapway, and he said, you know, you actually talk like an old person. He said the way you say some things, you know, you talk like an older person. And I said, well, I'm just speaking the way my elders talked. You know, that's all I'm doing. I'm not, you know. So when you talk about change, I can see the change, you know, and like I said earlier, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's changing and they talk different.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on I'm sorry, I didn't.
I just think I noticed a lot of that too nowadays too, because some of these new teachers are starting to do a lot just like English grammar. And so they make it like an English sentence,
Mm.
but all of our elders have always said English is backwards. English is backwards. You know, it's backwards than our language. You know what I mean? Not backwards rude, but you know, backward. Like it means it's flipped. Like
Right.
because we do like, I don't know, but we do like subject verb whatever in English, and then it's opposite kind of. We say the verb last sometimes, and so that's different. And then some of these kids too nowadays, they're shortening words like Kitsway. They say kits instead of Kitsway, which is money, you know, and so they shorten that. Or instead of saying the whole word "kaitsiao," they say just cuts lots, or something. You know, they do a lot of slang kind of things. But I think, like he was saying, like, you know, access, inclusion is really great, especially if you guys are having some neat festivities or whatever, even just to invite people to be part of whatever you're doing in your regular everyday culture, you know, just like our culture too. And then what I was thinking about is like we really need help with grants, things like grant writing, people with skills to do that, to get the language out here more, like environmental print would help. Oh man, can you imagine how awesome everybody would feel if you had some words in our languages that was around, not appropriating, but you know what I mean, just like things, you know, to have more of, you know, because, you know, I've noticed like in Joseph, there's, you know, things, but, you know, it would just be really neat, like to, like in the way of inclusion that way, it would look really neat. And then it would cause more interest, I feel like, and then spark more, like maybe, oh, what's this? Maybe more dialogue between the culture, you know, between the peoples and things like that, that, you know, like people might be too scared to approach something, you know, that way. But when it's there, then like, oh, that's a nice little icebreaker, or, you know, conversation starter. I don't know.
I'm writing all these down, by the way, so it's truly. I have
But we
this.
do need a lot of help because, you know, we don't
Yeah.
have like even just magazines, books, stories, like things, you know, like resources to learn, you know, to show to put the language on, you know, for people to have. I mean, you go anywhere you go, everything's written in your language. You know, we want that too. Just like Spanish, like how do we get it so that everybody knows, you know, I bet you everybody in this room knows Spanish words, right? So like how do we make it be our language too, you know? It's
My
like,
head's going.
you know,
like,
so there's all
Rich,
kinds
let's
of things.
talk, yeah. JC, you're in the county part-time doing work with Homeland. How can the rest of our community outside of Nez Perce Wallowa Homeland, how can we help with this work?
I think just showing up like this,
This
opening
is
up the
great.
space for it to be a conversation
Yeah, that's
both
nice.
ways, not just saying, oh, we want to know this. How do you think that we could get to know that? You know, this is starting a conversation and we're not making any assumptions. And we're both saying, hey, I'm willing to answer. Are you willing to conversate and bring this back and forth? So we're not making assumptions about each other. Because I think a lot of things is we think one community is one way. And it's not. We could have just asked and we made
Right.
these assumptions, and then we're building this barrier between each other just because we didn't ask, hey, is this okay? Hey, is this how you pronounce this? See this Indian word here? How do you even say that? You know, because I'm going to ask also one of these guys, how do you even say that? Can you write it like how it sounds, not how it's written? So, and that's also what I'm trying to do right now, is not be able to read the language with the glottals and not have to say, can you say it? And then I'll look at the word. So those are great conversation starters because I know that I want to know. And if I didn't know, I would assume that you guys would want to know because we're all kind of nosy people anyways. So, you know, just asking the question is okay because you can just get a no answer and then you can go on. And we all kind of have a really stoic face, maybe a little bit RBF faces. But once you start talking with us, we're all, oh, hey.
Yeah.
We just like look kind of grumpy as Indian people.
That's just a cultural thing.
I
though.
always
I
tell
don't
people
think I
like
would
that,
ever-
just come ask
Yeah,
me because I feel
right.
like sometimes we're just in our thought and, you know, frowning kind of in our thought. And you can ask us and it will snap us right out of it.
I feel like our society is afraid of direct contact now again. Like 20 years ago, it was a lot easier, I feel
Yeah.
like, to just say straight up to your face, like ask you a question. But now because of so many people getting offended by so many things. You're like, what do I do?
Or people
You know?
being on social media
Yeah,
not
the social
knowing how
media
to
thing,
conversate in
keyboard
person.
warriors and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, you know.
Keyboard
So
warriors. I'm just gonna make it clear that you said RBF face and not.
Yeah,
so
she
I
did.
just
Yeah.
went, okay.
Yeah, I warn my daughter
For
about it all the
recording,
time.
yeah.
we all have it.
I want to give everybody, folks, a chance. We've been talking for about an hour here, so does anybody have any questions? Anything? And again, question starts with what?
Question.
Excellent. All right.
This is a simple one. I have an ancient iPad, and years ago, there was a really nice Nez Perce app. And it was like red, and you punch it, and it had all the description of the animals and places, everything. And then I had to buy iPhones down through the years for work. And I want to get rid of the damn iPad, but I can't move that app to anything else because it's, sorry, but it's extinct.
Yeah, and I don't even think they use it.
So,
I don't even think they use it right now. It's been going through a lot of drama with the creators, I guess, and things, and they just haven't updated it. And then, but they are working on some new stuff. So they are working on a way to get Apple iOS stuff. And so they're trying things, but right now the best thing is nimiputimp.org, in my opinion. There's all that information is on there, and it's recordings. There's even coyote stories. There's the play that Angel Sabota did with her students about the creation story. There's, all the basic vocabulary that you want to learn to start,
yeah, I really enjoyed the app too.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Nez Perce pronunciation of what.
And I think that goes along with funding also, because some of us are not very technical. I'm not very technical at all. I know a lot of traditional teachings with my hands and about creating, but I don't know how to get that onto a computer. And I
Like
think
programming.
that's
Yeah,
with,
computer
that's like with some of
programming,
us
so hard.
too, because some
Yeah.
of us are kind of like, we don't want to have to do any more social or more computer work than we already have to. And so I feel like those people need to mix up with the people that really like computer work and like to do apps, because
I want to do favors.
I don't feel like we're the ones that do that.
we provide the
so-
information, then we have to get the person who's
Yeah.
the technology savvy to make
Yeah,
it.
that we can
you know,
like
to
pour
create-
into. So I think it's the connection piece that we need this, and who is willing to do that, and who's willing to work together to be able to do that also. But I feel like that is a lot of words. Like, I can't get corrected by if I'm saying it right. I can pretend that I think I'm saying it right by copying it, but then I say something and then she's like this. You got to spit like this. Because it's a lot of and a lot of
Juicy words.
Yeah, a lot of you got to get the spit right in your mouth to say it. So it was a little bit harder because they're just words. It's not a back and forth. So I learn the most by sitting in class, even if I'm working still and I'm listening to them in class in the background. They're asking the questions that naturally go in sync, like, but what about this word? Then to this word. And it's not like, so sometimes our classes go in different directions, just like Kristen said, because of our interest or how we're going to use it or how we can use it in our lives today because of the different environments that we work in and the different people that we have in class.
So I would suggest that if you want an exact answer from the Nez Perce tribe, that you get a hold of Thomas Gregory in the language department at the Nez Perce tribe. It's like thomasg@nezperce.org, and you can ask him directly about like what's up with your app, and then he'll tell you, because they have these cool projects coming out soon, but I don't know exactly what because I don't work there. I just know because we hang out and talk. But
And if you are somebody who is technical and has access to that, maybe reach out to them too and see if you can help. So, yes, Rich?
So you've all kind of danced around it, but I think one of the questions is and I know young people have a lot of interest now, and they have a lot of problems now and all that, but do you think there's a growing interest among young people on your reservations in language and culture? And you teach more than language, you teach traditional arts too.
I think it goes in waves.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they really want to get into it, and some students really get into it, and then it starts being used more at home, and they bring it home, and then we're learning it because they're bringing home.
And what I
And
love,
then sometimes it kind of fades back with COVID. It faded back a lot.
yeah.
So
Do we
it
have
was
the
really
language
hard.
camp? Will kids sign up?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck
Because
yeah.
we're gonna do language in the morning, and then we'll do fun
And
other
well,
stuff
and that's
too.
that's what it goes down to, is that
Like
really
active,
availability,
active
right? Because
moving.
they need to have things available, and when they
Yeah.
do, then everybody, it's always full.
And
every
mixing
time.
it and
Yeah.
putting language in
And-
whatever.
Right. And also what I love now is like Yellow Hawk, like our clinic that we have, and all these other cool programs are inserting more language stuff, like language use. They're naming their programs with the language. They're creating like this new family engagement program. They're doing so much cool stuff every quarter, every season, I'll say, every season of what we do for practicing our things like hunting or canning fish or root digging or doing the earth oven or, you know, whatever it is. They're doing that, and they get money to actually invite all these people in the community to come. So it's parents and children. And so they're perpetuating all this cool stuff by that. And then they're also asking the language department for translations of these things that they're doing. And like we have a new horse program within our culture, within our clinic. And so they're trying to insert more language and more culture into that. And I love that. So yeah, there is a lot more happening now for sure, because before it was just like, oh, culture camp once a year. And that was pretty much it. Powwows, you know, a couple powwows and a couple things. But now it really seems like there's a lot more access to traditional practices.
Yeah. And trying to get language involved in all of
Yeah.
that, even if it's not a language-based program.
Right.
Like Sakonma School, we're trying to get words that we can use on the river that are connecting with people. Or at meat camp last year, we had a small meat camp, and they reached out to Kristen to get words that they could use at meat camp. So we're not just, we're trying to
Do the whole
name
thing.
it into everything that we're doing, because language is a part of everything that we do. So we're just trying to get it incorporated in every single thing as much as possible, so that it's getting to as many people as possible. And if it's around more, then it will sink in more, and more of us will be able
Exposure.
to recognize what each other are saying.
Yeah, and sorry, just one more thing.
That's
Like
right.
this reminded me of one of the ways that people could help. Because we don't have really our own, we sort of have a school board for our high school, which is on our reservation, but it's still a Pendleton School District school, which is really neat because then it's connected, you know, to all the schools in town. But in town, we have this one major school that mostly all the Native students go to. It's Washington Elementary. And when we had one of our tribal members working for the school, doing these wraparound services and things, they got this really cool idea. And they got funding from the school board from Pendleton, not the tribe, where they paid to have the entire school like made with the language translations of every room. And they did it in all 3 dialects. And so what I loved about that is that even, you know, because they're primarily Umatilla focused right now because we're the Umatilla reservation. And so that's the main thing. But the thing is, you know, I'm a Nez Perce speaker. I'm from the Cayuse, and I don't want my language, my dialect to be just kicked out and, you know, just linguicide, hello, you know, just like Walla Walla. So we want to keep it all together. So some of us still advocate for it to be three dialects, 3 representations in everything that we do. We're trying, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's like Julie said too, like politics and things like that, which we don't want to get involved in. We just want to do the language. We just want to give you the words. We just want to have it be open and free, you know, to be able to share that, you know, and just, you know, we wish there was money, you know, for that obviously, but, you know.
And how
Good.
cool to be in a school where your language is on the walls, you know, and that is the norm.
Yeah.
Where
How
before
cool
it
is
was
that?
kind of a little bit racist,
Yeah.
or, you know.
So we got 2 questions back here. I'm going to start. No, I'm going to go. Somebody was right ahead of you, right behind you. Yeah, you're next. Yeah.
Do you think there is interest in the few native speakers who are still around to potentially be part of an immersion camp for younger people in your tribe?
I think because the Colville Reservation, it's a confederation of tribes. There's 12 tribes up there. There's actually, out of those 12 tribes, there's 4 languages. You have 2 Salish, you got the Nez Perce, and you got Palouse, which is Ichishkin. So in a way, majority of the languages taught up there is one of the Salish, and which is good. We all support each other. And when you talked about, do I see growth? Yeah, there is growth, because I didn't see this much language in school when I was growing up. And there was one Nez Perce teacher. I didn't see any Salish at the school I went to, but now there's language at the high school, at elementary, over at Omak, Pasco Sherman, over in Inchalim. So it is, there's a big presence. But I think, because Nespelem it's a good, 5.5 hour drive. It's a ways. Things got to be planned out way ahead for us. I think if the elders had assistants to come, I think they would help, and I like it that things to be better planned when it's warmer, because it's actually colder at home at Nespelem than it is here.
Yeah.
I was surprised how warm it was today. I was like, wow, man, it's colder at home.
Give it a couple days, yeah. It's coming.
But yeah, I think they would if it was planned out ahead enough and planned during the warmer weather time.
And
I think they would.
incentive
Yeah.
too, honestly,
Food for
because
thought, yeah.
that's a lot for them to travel and
Yeah.
to be here and to take away from their lives and doing the things. Then they might need helpers, so you need to support the helpers that would
Yeah.
come with them. And then need access, and then, then they
Big
need to
effort.
eat,
Yeah.
the things like that.
Could be very cool to think about,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
You were patient, thank you.
So I wondered if there was a place that people could go, any people, and see what learning camps and other types of learning children and adults can get involved in, so that we know when and where these things are taking place.
So that's a hard question.
Yeah.
So I mean, in Wallowa County, there's other different of us doing stuff. If you could always reach out to Nez Perce Wallowa Homelands and see what we are planning here in Wallowa County. But that's a big question. We would know.
Sound, really, it's describing the sound, like if a deer's walking in mud and he's pulling his hoofs out.
Yeah, we have a
Wow.
ton of automatopoeia. That's what that is, the sound things make.
So
We have a ton of that. Even in the back of the dictionary, there's a whole section on that, on sounds of things, which is really cool. And it's so neat to learn that because it's different than American, like English, just like, how does a dog bark in Nez Perce? What's the sound? Like in French, wah wah, that kind of thing.
How do you say that?
Clap,
clap, slap,
Which to me sounds like
slap, slap. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's talking about the
butterfly.
sound of the wings. Yeah.
I think I have time for maybe one more question, so, yes.
You kind of spoke a little bit about this, but I'm curious how the Nez Perce language is reflective of the landscape and the climate of this place, and also kind of the daily patterns of everyday life and the seasonal patterns that people live in.
That's a great question, thank you.
It's a good one.
Yeah, good way to
Yeah.
end that. Make it easy, right, a softball, go.
So we'll need another hour.
Yeah.
Maybe not so, I don't know, Victorian. I don't know, Christian, whatever. But it's real. It's real life. It's nature, what we call tamalwit. It's there's no way around that. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Well, I want to close with just a couple of quick things. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. I think you all being here is proof that this work is important. And as Jacy said, the conversations are going to continue, and I think this is great. I remember talking to Beth Piatote about a year ago, and she talked about the work that she does with some of the art and the clips he made trying to bring the language back to the county, and said that something that stuck with me, that this place is waiting, the ground is wanting to hear its language spoken here. So anything we can do to help that, I think, is pretty valuable. Do the work. There's lots of great resources out there. You've got these wonderful people that are willing to come in and teach us, but at the same point, do the work.